Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, we're going to talk about why your team is great and why your team stinks. A lot of this has to do where they rank in recruiting, and there's actually an article I'm going to go over that goes over the last 5 years and ranks the teams. In the SEC, we're going to talk about teams outside the SEC as well as far as recruiting. We got to talk a little bit about transfer portal too, because that plays a role, money, NIL, all those things. Let's get right on into this. All right, we're going to start out with the SEC, talking about ranking the rosters. And what this fella did, he looked at the last 5 years. And as you can see, he's even got a 5-year average. Now, Alabama, of course, has killed it forever. If you went before 2021, they'd be about 1 or 2 every single year with Nick Saban. So Alabama's sitting on top. And then, of course, Georgia's just right there with them. There's almost no difference. I can't even believe Georgia had a year where they finished 4th. That's unheard of for them. That's terrible for them.
You serious, Clark?
If you want to know why these teams have won so many natties, that's why, right there. Now, Texas, ever since NIL popped in, they all of a sudden are a player. They finished 1st last year in recruiting. You can see before NIL and money, they were back 15th, and they weren't worth a crap. NIL changed everything for them. And I think we all know why they have money available.
And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground come a bubbling crude.
Yeah, up through the ground come a bubbling crude. Now, LSU, you would expect them to always be in the top 5 because they've got the entire state of Louisiana to themselves. But they really haven't killed it the last several years. They're still doing well. I mean, an average of 7.4 is solid as can be, but not for LSU. They really should be top 5.
And we're sitting here again.
We're sitting here again
Talking about the same things.
Oklahoma, you see, they had a bad year this year. 17th, and that has to do with their record, I'm sure, is a big part of it. Normally they're top 10, but not this last year. So, yeah, Oklahoma had a bit of a struggle there. Let's see, Texas A&M, they finished 9th last year. They finished 1st back when Jimbo really threw that NIL money out there, and it didn't pan out too good for them. A lot of that backfired with the players having to be removed off the team. But as you can see, they've got the money. It's just they've had to pay most of it to Jimbo. Florida has actually done fine, but they've had a couple of problems. Billy Napier not the greatest coach in the world, that's for sure. However, their schedule has sucked. I mean, it's been really difficult, and you can understand why they've struggled. But their recruiting's been decent, and they wound up winning 8 games last year. So, I mean, they came out okay. But that's after a 3-year losing streak, and they're capable of recruiting much better than this. Tennessee, they had their struggles back in the day because of the whole Jeremy Pruitt thing. They're starting to improve. But still, you know, around 11th is about right for them the last, 3 years. Auburn's getting better and better with their recruiting, and Auburn's been very busy in the transfer portal, but they've had multiple losing seasons in a row, which makes no sense. That's just poor quarterback play. Then you can see Ole Miss, they haven't killed it in recruiting, but they have done really well in the transfer portal. As a matter of fact, they spent over $10 million on their football team last year, and they don't show up in this NIL. As you can see, they were somewhere around 10, 11, 12 million, so they were just outside the top 16. And the reality is Lane Kiffin's a pretty good X's and O's guy. He's a very good offensive-minded coach, one of the best. I hate saying that, but it's true. And he also likes to use fake injuries to help his team as much as possible up until recently. And they had to put a Lane Kiffin rule in. That's what I call it.
Ah. Oh, my arm. It's broken.
To stop that nonsense. And now 90% of it's gone. And they're even thinking about making a player sit out an entire series if they get hurt, unless they have the green dot on their helmet. So he's actually done really well. And I think Ole Miss is pretty happy. Missouri has not exactly killed it in recruiting. They've done a good job with NIL. Now, I'm going to be very interested to see what they do without Brady Cook. They're bringing in a guy by the name of Bo Pribula. He comes out of Penn State, and he was a high 4-star quarterback, and he's a dual threat guy. We'll see how well they do with him. They paid $1.5 million to get him, so they clearly think highly of him. But losing Brady Cook, this could be a down year for Missouri. We will see. I don't think Eli will appreciate me saying that. He stands on business, you know.
Yep. We stand on business, Josh.
Kentucky, oh boy. Kentucky's averaging in the mid-20s, 26.8 over the last 5 years, and they're coming off 4-8. Mark Stoops normally gets them going pretty well. He's usually got a good defense, good offensive line. That did not happen last year. And Brock Vandagriff didn't work out for him to the point he retired. So we'll see how they play out. I'm not thrilled with their quarterback situation. This could be – Mark Stoops is on the hottest of hot seats, but he would be owed a lot of money. And given the whole revenue sharing and the extra $30 million that teams got to come up with every year with $21.5 to players, $2 or $3 million for damages as part of that House versus NCAA for former players, and then new scholarships. You're not going to see coaches getting fired as much anymore. I think those days are over, those big payoffs. A lot of teams are just going to have to stomach it and stick with a coach much, much longer. The $20, $30, $40 million payoffs to coaches or the $76 million that Jimbo got, I think those days are numbered. As a matter of fact, they're probably over. Mississippi State, it's not that they're terrible recruiting. It's just they're not killing it in the portal either, so I don't know how they're going to do. They got a new coach down there. Arkansas, that doesn't surprise me, 32nd. It's hard to compete in the SEC with these numbers. Now, here's South Carolina. They're getting creaked on this rating, 15th. They're not 15th. They had a terrible year back in 21, ranked 80th. Coaching change, I believe that's when they brought in Shane. And this is not a fair ranking. They're really around 20th. So this will upset Jackpot to no end.
Come on, Gamecocks!
Yeah, and then you got Vanderbilt. They finished 75th and 25. They average around 50th. They're a team that probably belongs in the Ivy League, but they're playing in the SEC. I will give Diego Pavia a ton of credit. Clark Lee's had a nice year last year. He's off the hot seat for him. And Diego's getting another year at least. So should be fun to watch them this year. They were a lot of fun last year. And then when you look at 2025, you can see Texas, Georgia, Alabama were 1, 2, and 3. Ohio State finished 4th, Oregon 5th. They've done a great job with NIL. You can see Ohio State got 3 5-stars, Alabama 3, Georgia got 5, and Texas got 5. That sucks. Man, that stinks to have to go up against that. Think about that. That's every year they get 4 or 5, which means they got 20-plus 5-stars on their team. That's hard to beat teams like that. It just is. I mean, when you've got the most elite athlete at every position just about, makes it tough. That's why Alabama was so good for so long. Plus, they had the GOAT with Saban. And now Kirby's, he's a terrific coach. Sarkisian's a terrific coach at Texas. These teams are going to be rough to deal with. And then you see Oregon's done a great job. Look, here's the beauty of what Oregon's done. Look at that average of 94. They only had 20 commits, and they finished in the top 5. That's really hard to do. They have some premium players they brought in. And look at Michigan getting in here at 6th.
It's got to be America's team.
They're spending some money. Michigan's in the mix. Then they got a quarterback. They took the quarterback from LSU. And here's a losing season after losing season, Auburn at number 7. Florida picked it up nicely at the end. So anyway, there you go. And we actually wound up with 2 5-stars, not 1. That edge rusher got pushed to 5-star at the end. Here's Notre Dame at 12th, but they did a really good job in the portal, and they usually do. So if you want to know why your team stinks, you can just go to recruiting and see how much money they're spending in NIL, which is right here. And if you're not on this list in the top 16 or top 20 in either recruiting or on this list, and especially if you're playing the SEC or now the Big Ten, you're going to stink. It's just the way it is. It's like trying to make a great cake. If the ingredients aren't any good, you can have the best chef in the world. That cake's not going to be that great. He might be able to get it to pretty good, but not fantastic, especially when these other teams have great ingredients and a great chef. Their cake's going to be way better. Or their steak. For the guys out there, they probably prefer that reference. If you get a great cut of steak and then you have a great chef, that steak's going to be just right. So the reality of football, and it's always been recruiting. Now it's NIL, now it's transfer portal, and it's coaching. It's always been coaching too. So, just look at those things, and it'll give you a good idea where you're probably supposed to be. I think Josh Heupel, for my Vols, has done a terrific job. We've had 30 wins in the last 3 years and finished in the top 10 I think all 3 years. We may not have in that Joe Milton year. We might have finished like 12th or something. But anyway, we've been where we needed to be as far as better than our recruiting. And I want to take a look at basketball coming up. Today we've got number 1 against Vanderbilt at 7 o'clock. Tennessee is playing at Kentucky Rupp Arena, the Death Star, number 5 versus 15. Tennessee's actually favored in that game, but Kentucky's going to try to sweep them. Florida's at Mississippi State. That could be a decent game. Alabama's at Texas. Alabama's an awful good team right now. And then Georgia's at Texas A&M. Let's see if there's any other big games. Purdue at Michigan. And then tomorrow Duke's playing California. Ole Miss playing South Carolina. South Carolina's team is awful, 0-10. Ugh. Oklahoma's playing Missouri. All right, then Saturday we've got a huge ball game coming up. Right here we got number 1 Auburn at Alabama. That's a monster game at 4 o'clock. We also got Vanderbilt at Tennessee. That should be a revenge game for Tennessee. Arkansas at Texas A&M. Trying to see if there's any other big games. There's Duke. Stanford at Duke. That should be a butt whooping. And then South Carolina at Florida. That'll be a butt whooping. So anyway, did want to cover that, talking about teams that are, Georgia, Alabama, those teams that are, right up at the top. Oregon, Ohio State. They're going to be great for a while. As long as they can do what they're doing, getting the right ingredients, and they got good coaches. It's going to be difficult. And then you've got the teams that are just outside of that, the Tennessees, the Missouris. I'm going to tell you something. South Carolina is going to be an interesting team this year. Very interesting to watch. And Oklahoma's another one. Their coach is on the hot seat. They need to have a good year. They're used to being good, so Oklahoma, that's a guy that could be feeling the heat. Anyway, just wanted to talk about that a little bit. It's off-season. Recruiting is obviously a big part of it, NIL, and just trying to understand what you got to look forward to one way or the other. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, hit this little button right here. It will not cost you a dime. Help you get my videos. And right over here is the most recent video, YouTube. Thanks, you'll enjoy. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.
I want you to know it's over.
Well,